Hi, I'm Nick Greenfield, co-founder and CEO of Candid Pro, and I'm excited to be on the podcast today to tell you about how we are bringing a game-changing approach to partnership and technology into the orthodontic and dental practice world. Today, we'll talk about our manufacturing, mechanics, and monitoring that are completely different from how the world has previously looked at moving teeth, and how we will help you scale your practice with great partnership.
orthomarketing.com, 360-degree digital marketing solutions for your practice.
Well, hello everybody out there in podcast land. This is Dean Steinman from Ortho Marketing, and we are back with another podcast for you. All right, I am very, very stoked for today's guest. Those of you that are in the orthodontic dental space have heard the company Candid, and I'm very excited to have two of the big people from Candid here today. I'm proud to have the CEO, and I have a director of marketing here, and I'd love to introduce them. They'll talk a little bit about the company and what they're doing. So without further ado, I have Nick Greenfield and I have Jen Pinder, and start off with Nick. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. So, Nick, welcome. Thanks so much, and tell us, who is Nick Greenfield?
Thanks so much for having me. Really excited to be here, and specifically to talk about marketing within the orthodontic space, both for orthodontists and general dentists. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Candid, and one of the things that we are known for is starting as a direct-to-consumer business and actually fully pivoting out of direct-to-consumer about 2 years ago and focusing entirely now on the dental professional. So we took a business that was doing almost 100 million in revenue, burned it down to zero, and started again to focus on helping dentists and orthodontists scale up orthodontics inside their practices. And what this means is you get to work with folks like Jen, who will give you a rundown of what she does, to think about orthodontics as a service, right? How do we simplify and scale up an orthodontic business that allows you to do way more with way less cost and way more time for yourself and your patients? So everything we're doing is geared around that and helping drive incredibly high quality clinical outcomes, but really thinking about the business side, which is chair time and cost reduction and increasing volume of patients coming into your practice.
Right. So I've had lots of CEOs in here, and I'm always love finding out your aha moment. So let's go back in time. Tell me what happened. You woke up one morning and said, I want to start an aligner company. What was your aha moment? You said, this is something that I want to do, and I see the opportunity, and what made you get out of bed and say, boom, let's do this? So what was your awakening moment?
If you rewind back even before the aha moment, for me, I didn't have orthodontics growing up. And by the time I graduated college, it was clear that my teeth had shifted. And I went to my dentist at the time in San Francisco, and she told me the cost of, at that time, Invisalign. And I almost fell out of my chair. I mean, you're talking about, for a 23-year-old kid making $50,000 a year, which I felt was, at the time, highway robbery. I mean, I was doing great. And the idea of taking, especially in a place like California, taking 20, 30% of my, entire income for the year and spending money on orthodontics, to me, that was crazy, right? That's a huge number. And I think what's happened since, and I'll get to the moment that really brought it together, because it was the story that I saw the increase in accessibility and the improvement in technology, right? In 2012, I still had a BlackBerry, right? So the iPhone has now enabled Candid monitoring, which is our, the base of our remote monitoring solution. Very similar to many of the features that I'm sure some of the doctors listening to this podcast have used, such as dental monitoring or other services, but integrates a bunch more features like live chat support for patients and other things that kind of up level the game. And so when we thought about those things coming together, the fact that you could take the physical of a liner and then the digital for a busy professional or a busy working mom or a kid in school, and dramatically reduce office visits and make it way more accessible for patients, which would bring not only the cost down, the perceived cost of having to come in and out of the office all the time, but also improve the cost for the doctor, because instead of needing to do 15 or 20 visits, now because the patient can be monitored remotely at home for many of those visits, you're going from 15, 20 visits in a case to 3 or 4 visits in a case. And so you're saving chair time and cost. And so bringing those two things together really was the origin, is the digital and the physical world coming together to make the original Candid product.
So what gave you I guess this is a term I used from my grandma, the chutzpah to say, I'm going to get into this and tackle the behemoth that's there? So, that's like, saying, well, I'm going to start a new Kleenex company and start making tissues. Everybody knows it's Kleenex. So there is a big player in the aligner space. So what made you say, I want to compete with these guys, and because that's a tough road to hoe there. So what was your driving force behind that?
So I've done it before. And I think that that's an important part of the story. Is I was one of the very, very early employees before there was a name or even a concept at Lyft. And so we took on Uber. And, we ultimately, I think at peak got to about 40% market share. I think that has gone down to about 30% market share in the States. But know how to build a company where you can find the opportunity. And the opportunity that we saw was not necessarily cannibalistic. It wasn't, hey, we're going to go and take all these Invisalign cases. It was, we think there's a huge part of the market today that's underserved from a patient population standpoint. And we want to provide the dental professional tools through differentiated aligner manufacturing, differentiated movement methodologies, and differentiated monitoring, right? Those are the 3 M's that really drive the Candid Pro system, to allow doctors to now take on more cases, drive more accessibility and affordability for patients. And that will increase the overall size of the market. And when we made the move to Candid Pro, which really was more of, okay, now we're going, in quotes, head to head, as some people would think, we still really think about this as market accretive or growth opportunity inside of practice. Some of our largest doctors are offering Candid Pro side by side with Invisalign, and others have moved all of their volume to Candid Pro because of the problems that we solve for them. So we're not here to shrink the market, or it's not a zero-sum game. We view this as very market expansionary for not only the doctors, but of course the patients that they serve every day.
Well, so Jen, you deal with marketing and positioning and things like that. What would you say are the 2 biggest pain points that a practice has in order that they're facing now, and how do you think that Candid solves that?
Yeah, and I love how humble Nick is about everything. So I'm going to toot his horn a little bit as I talk, because he's so humble. All he wants to do is help everybody, right? And he truly is the smartest guy I've ever met, but he'll never sit there and tell you all of that stuff. And when he's saying we're growing the market, that's exactly what we're doing. And the 2 things that you're asking me is profitability, right? That's one of the biggest problems all of our practices are facing right now. Things are at an all-time high with expenses, right? And now we're telling practices that how are they going to increase their profitability? Well, here's where we come in, right? They are able to have patients remote monitor, that they're able to be in treatment, as well as they're able to do additional production. There's no other product out there that lets you do that. You're able to do a 2-for-1 at the same time in a chair. And that's what practices need. With everything that's happening with inflation right now, and Dean, you and I talked about this the last time we spoke. I go to the grocery store and look how much more my grocery bill is. It's huge, right? This is what practices are up against. And now practices are up against their hygienists are leaving because it's their world right now. They are leaving and getting big time dollars going to different practices. So we have to face the reality that we're in. How are we going to let practices grow? And how are we going to make it where they can make a profit too? They want to keep their team members. They need to keep leveling up in their game. And how are they going to help their patients? They're going to help their patients that their patients can remote monitor, because I'm a busy mom. I work full time. I have 2 kids. I do not have time to go to the doctor for myself ever. I just don't. And it's not my boss telling me I can't go. It's I have too many things on my plate. But if you told me I could remote monitor, heck yeah, I'm going to do that, because now I'm like, okay, I can do this for me and my kids. It's making it a lot easier because, and to mention, my kids have cheer, my kids have basketball, my kids have this. We're in this world that we have to make it fit for the patient, but also fit for the practice. And with the practice, when you have dental professionals, they need more support. So here's where Candid Pro comes in, and we say, okay, we're going to build a business plan with you. We're going to show you step-by-step marketing pieces of what you need to do, of how to market to your patients. And we're going to put it together in a pretty bow. And then we're going to sit there and talk to you each month and say, okay, how many cases did you start this month? And what's our goal? And how do we get to, if you want to do 5 cases a month, great. How are we going to get you to 10? And let's give you a roadmap of how you're going to do that. And how you do that is you have to be business partners. And that's what Candid Pro is with all of their practices. We're business partners. We come in and take you by the hand, and we're like, we will train you. We will give you marketing support. We'll give you business support. And we'll show you how to level up your practice. Because the practices right now don't know how. Everything has changed so much. And even digitally, like websites, look at most dental practices' websites. I mean, you do them. How many times do you go to a dental practice and it's current? It has current pictures. It even has the services that they have. It doesn't. So that's where we come in and we're like, let's work with you and show you how to do this and give you the materials. You saw everything that we give. We give you a whole asset kit. We're like, okay, here, you want web copy? Here. You want social posts? Here. You want email blasts? Here. And all they have to do is put in their name. So we try to make it as plug and play as possible for them, because we know what it's like to be in their world. I used to be in that world all the time. I know how crazy it is. And then I know to teach a team of how to adopt a whole new concept is hard, right? So when you have a whole company behind it saying, you know what, we're going to show you every step of the way and we're going to make you as comfortable as possible, that's invaluable. And I'm so thankful for Nick for letting us do this the way he does, because it's such a different mindset from other companies. Because, I've been at other companies and I've never seen it this way. We want to help people. We want to help practices and we want to help patients. And that's what we do every day. And that's the coolest part of my job.
And I would add on top of that two important things. One is Candid Pro is not a lab, right? We look at everybody else out there, they're labs. You put in the prescription, you say what you want, they send you something, you're on your own. With Candid Pro, you have folks like Jen who are there full time to help you grow your practice. And Jen has helped practices not in a year, not in a quarter, not in a month, not in a week, sometimes in a day. And many practices, I've seen this, do $100,000 in net new production in a single day by bringing her capabilities and her talents and those of her team into the practice to help them be successful. So I think that that's what we do, is we think about ourselves as partners, right? We need practices who are partners that want to work with us collaboratively, but then we help take them to the next level because we have people like Jen who just know how to do that.
So I'm going to throw word out there with actually 2 words, and that are the scariest 2 words in most people's business lives, and that's adapt and change. Okay. And it's so hard for somebody to do that, especially the dental professional. This is what they're trained to do. And, and obviously now you want them to adapt and you want them to change the way they do things and how they think. So, let's back up one bit. Jen, you spoke a while back and we had this great conversation. I remember that, when I work with a lot of our practices and they're afraid to adapt to monitoring, to virtual monitoring. They say, we won't see the patients as often. And you and I said, no, you will see them so much more, but you're seeing them in 2023, not 2019 or 18. And 2023 is virtual. That's the world we're in, but they don't see it and adapt. So what is it that, what advice can you give a practice, somebody listening, to say you have to adapt, you have to change from the status quo? Because change is scary. So, first of all, Nick, what's one bit of advice that you would give a practice that just, they're stuck, they've been using, Invisalign for blah, 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 and they don't want to change because of this or that, and they're very happy, and, people get used to it, or they don't even do Invisalign. They don't want it. They just want to use traditional braces. So now you've got all these, they have all these options out there, Candid and several, obviously, other aligner companies. What one bit of advice would you give a practice to change?
If you are in the business of dentistry or in orthodontics, you are responsible for serving your patients in your community. and you have to know what your patients in your community want. And so change is not about changing yourself or changing the way you do things because you want to just make yourself better. It's actually about the changing times of what the expectations of the patients are and those folks who are coming in to see you. And those expectations have changed dramatically from 2010 to 2020 to now 23 into 24. You can get things on Amazon, not in 2 days, but in 1 hour, right? We've all experienced the Amazon Prime world. People expect to be able to see their doctors, if it's possible, virtually. They expect information immediately. They expect that everything is digital. And so it's not about actually making a huge change to the way you practice. It's about understanding what your patients are looking for. And if you can deliver what patients are looking for, and what we see time and time again is a solution which requires 75% fewer office visits, can finish up to 40% faster, reduces attachments and reduces IPR, which is an area of pain for patients and causes more failure, and introduces this virtual monitoring solution where patients can actually scan at home, drives a higher level of compliance. Those are the things that patients expect in 2023. And so my ask wouldn't be, hey, you need to make a bunch of changes for change's sake. I think you have to look at what your patients want and how your patients live their lives and every other product and service they interact with every single day. And your practice needs to start to look like that and even get ahead of it so that you can become a leader rather than falling behind.
Jen?
Yeah, and the great thing we do is we meet practices where they are. Because if I were to go into a practice and tell the hygienist that they have to scan every single patient, I'd be thrown out on my tail, right? Because that would be overwhelming. But what we do is we make everything a stair step and show them how to do it. We give them a roadmap. So when you meet practices where they are with every step, there's not one practice that is exactly the same, right? And at Candid Pro, we realize that. So we don't have this cookie cutter approach. We have a customized approach for every practice we partner with. And we say, okay, here, show me your workflow. And then what we do is not even just for us. We help level up your workflow just within your practice because we are changing. And the thing is change scary? Yes. But is it inevitable? Yes. Just like Nick was talking about, he had a BlackBerry. We all had a BlackBerry. And I mean, I'm going to date myself even more. I had a Nextel. I mean, good Lord. You know what I mean? Like, look at the progression of how that all went. So things keep changing. And now, could we ever imagine ourselves without an iPhone? No. But what is it going to look like in 2 years from now? Who knows if it's still going to be an iPhone? I'm sure it's going to be something else. We'll probably have a chip in our head. But we're going to keep growing with that. So we have to grow with our practice. And that's what Candid Pro does is we come in and say, okay, if you have one scanner, we're going to set it up and show you how to scan a patient in the morning, a patient in the afternoon. And I can show you how to increase your production X-fold. And when you do this and you inspect what you expect, because that's what we do with our practices, we set goals with them and then we go in and show them continually. Our reps are there with their practices all the time. And that's what the practices need. But then what happens is when we get them to where they're comfortable, now they're doing 10, 15, 20, 30 cases a month completely on their own. And they never even dreamed of this. We're changing their practices. And when we talk to the practices tell us, I'm like, tell me what your goals are. We have some that want to expand. We have some that want to get another iTero. We have some that want to tell me what it is that you want and we can get you there. And it's the most, I can't even tell you how much it fills all of our cups of how happy it makes us when we're able to see how happy a provider is. One of the cases that Nick was talking about, we did a Love Your Smile Day, which is an aligner day. And we did it with a practice who had been in business for over 10 years. They had their highest production ever in one day in over 10 years. He called me, he was crying, you know what I mean? And then I start crying, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. And he's building on an extra observatory. He's really expanding. He's doing great things, but that's changing when you can do stuff like that. And that is the coolest feeling in the world when we can show a practice how to grow and they know they're not by themselves. They have us.
What needs to be done to take the training wheels off a practice who says they finally are going to jump into the aligner space and do that? Obviously, trepidation as far as what they kind of do in their skill set. So what's the learning curve for a practice who hasn't done this before? And then what needs to be done in order for them to be all in?
The first area is clinical confidence, right? As a doctor, that is the lowest common denominator. You have to believe that the product can deliver what you need it to deliver, right? And so in terms of engaging with us, those are a lot of the questions that we get out of the gate, and our team and then our faculty is able to answer those questions. What can you and can you not do? And there's, with every system, whether it's fixed or it is an aligner, there's always some limitations around things that are more challenging. And many times other solutions are driven around the talent and experience exclusively of the provider because they don't share data back from other cases with each of their different providers. So the first thing to do is make sure that we can get you to feel clinically confident that the solution works. And Candid Pro today has the bells and whistles you need to do almost all of the cases that you would do with aligners. We have elastics and attachments and bite ramps and IPR, and we try to minimize the use there, but that's the first. The second is a lot of the work that Jen and her team do, workflow optimization, getting the staff bought in, right? As a doctor, you can't do things without your staff. Your staff needs to believe in it. And then there's a whole laundry list, and we bring that to the practice like a consultant would, but this is coming from Candid Pro as a partner on things that we can do to help you scale piece by piece. It's not going to all happen overnight. We can help you get from 0 to 60 as fast as you want to go, but some doctors want to actually take it more slowly and see how things progress. And so whether it's marketing, whether it's having the right financing, the right workflow and process, as Jen said, especially for dentists, scanning more patients or even buying a scanner, some capital equipment, all of those different things are part of that checklist. And we can help you go through it and go from doing, 1 case a month to 10 cases a month. We have countless providers that we've helped that happen. And we're here to help grow providers and help them be more successful and help them serve their patients better.
So, Jen, the main holding point that I find with a lot of practices is the staff. All right, you can get a doctor to buy in, but they get in the staff's a whole different story. So what advice would you give a practice whose doctor was saying, yes, I want to do this, but staff's old school, been there for 15, 20, 30 years, don't want to adapt, don't know how to do so. So what little tip would you give to a practice doctor today to help his staff buy into this? Because once again, change is tough. And people that have been doing this for 20 years, I'm not allowed to do that. I'm afraid to do this. So what can a doctor do in order to get his staff to buy into this type of change?
Yeah, well, it's a couple things. And I actually just was on the phone with a rep in a practice today, and we had this exact conversation. And what we're doing, because they're new with us, and what we're doing is they're setting up an incentive within the practice that they're doing for when they hit the first 20 cases, that they're doing a team outing and they're all going to get a bonus. When you want to change behavior, you do have to do certain things like this, right? Do you want to put in different benchmarks? Do you want to do a team lunch? How do you want to celebrate when the first case is signed? You have to do little things to kind of do this, but with consistency comes confidence, right? So when we get them where they're scanning and we do scanning competitions, or where we have different financial competitions where they can have financial presentations and they role play with me and we kind of do competitions and I send donuts to people, you have to reward that behavior, right? But I always talk to every practice. I said, remember the day you first opened that practice? You were scared to death. You came in, you turned the lights on, your knees were shaking, and you didn't know how you were going to talk to that patient. But you did. Were you great? No, you fumbled a little bit, but it's okay because you learned. And you had someone there with you walking through it, right? You had your team with you and you were confident with them that you knew you wanted to help these patients and you knew you had their best interests at heart. You have an army at Candid Pro, and you have an orthodontist in your back pocket. You have an orthodontist who's going to give you a treatment plan. And then if you have any questions, you have one-on-one calls with our orthodontist, and they walk you through the process. There's no other company out there that's going to do all of this for you. So when you have that kind of security with us, that's empowering to the practice. And when we can help them say, okay, we're going to set reasonable goals. And if your team is resistant, okay, let's set something reasonable of how we're going to get there. But you have to work with us to get them there. If you want 5 cases, you have to make sure that they're going to scan at least a patient a day. Now that's realistic, right? We're not telling you to scan all 15 that you're seeing, but if you scan 1, that's realistic. And if you scan 1 a day on a 4-day week, you're going to close at least 2 bare minimum. You know what I mean? So we make it where it's stair step And then before you know it, that repetition of coming in and turning on the lights on the computer every day, this is what's happening, right? Now it's not as scary. And then now they're getting empowered when they see one of our reps that they're like, oh my gosh, I already started 2, I started 3, I started 4. Okay, so now we're changing it, right? People want to please, but you have to give them that confidence. So we start with the doctor and then we go to the teams. And when we make both people confident, they're going to be fine. And we're going to keep working with them and we're going to keep growing with their practice. And then we're going to keep showing them what different patients look like. Here's a busy mom. Have you ever talked to this patient? Have you ever talked to someone who's been in braces before? Like, you have to start planting the seed of what different patients look like, because everyone presents differently, right? We know, because we're in it, that 75 to 85% of patients suffer from malocclusion. Well, patients don't even know what malocclusion is, right? It sounds like a scary word, and it's not a scary word, but we want you to be in that storytelling position, because that's the other thing you'll hear from assistants is assistants don't want to sell. I don't want you to sell either. I want you to storytell to the patients of how this is going to help the patient and why they need it. Why they need it is their teeth are going to keep shifting. If we don't fix this now they're on the road, so they're going to need major restorative work. It's going to be costly. It's going to be time consuming. It's going to hurt, all the things, right? But you have to storytell that to the patient, because the patient trusts the assistants and the hygienists. So when we change that, that's a huge thing for our teams. When we're talking to them, as soon as they get the concept of, I don't have to sell it, I just need to tell the patient the benefits, that's an empowering thing for them. And it makes them so much more comfortable that they want to talk to their patients about it.
Gotta get used to change. It's scary, as I mentioned before, but once you do it, it's second nature. Nick, I'm going to give you 2 pair of glasses. First pair is going to give you the ability to go back 3 years in time. All right. So now you're sitting there and you wake up one morning and you have a chance to talk to Nick 2019. All right. 2020. What are you saying to you? What bit of advice are you giving yourself?
So a little bit of context for us going back 3 years. So I guess that's 2020.
Right before COVID. Let's say 4 years.
Yeah. So do you want to go 4 years back?
Before. Yeah. Okay.
Pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID.
I mean, we had about 40 retail locations. We were spending many millions of dollars a month on consumer marketing. It's one of the things that we know how to do really well as a company, is help you with your marketing spend. We've spent over $100 million as a company on consumer marketing, and we had almost 700 employees. So if you want to just think about what this company looked like at that point, and I would have strongly encouraged myself and the team to make the pivot that we made much sooner, because what I've seen is the clinical capabilities that we now have and the results that we're able to drive through the professional channel are just differentiated, especially for more complex cases, where you see that in a level of oversight that that patients feel like they want and they need, and that our doctors feel like they want and they need. So I would encourage us to, rather than waiting until the end of 2021 to make that move, I would encourage us 4 years ago to make that move immediately.
All right. So, interesting. Now you can put another pair on, and now we're going 3 years into the future. What are you seeing in this space?
I think that the company will be one of the, if not kind of the leading orthodontic solution with integrated remote monitoring. I believe that we will continue to innovate on clinical capabilities that allow orthodontists and general dentists to start more cases with less and less chair time, to operate practices with even higher levels of efficiency than they're able to do today. I believe that we will have probably many thousands, if not tens of thousands of doctors on the platform. And it will not just be domestic today, which is we're focused on the US, but we will likely, have started the process of becoming a global company. And we will be out there not only helping patients get the smiles they want in the States, but across the world. So 3 years from now, I think we will have meaningfully expanded in many, many different areas. And the market will know that the clinical results driven by doctors using the Candid Pro solution will be best in class.
Where do you see the orthodontic industry in 3 years from now?
I think the orthodontic industry is going to continue to expand. I think you will see more doctors going digital. I know it feels like everyone's gone digital, but it turns out that there's a lot of practices that are doing almost exclusively fix today. And I think as doctors see more clinical evidence and the clinical quality and the capabilities continue to expand on the digital front, you will see a continued shift to aligners. I think you will see doctors embrace other technologies besides intraoral scanning and the 3D printing of clear aligners, such as what Candid Pro offers with integrated monitoring. I think you'll also see more general dentists continuing to do more orthodontics in their practice. Many of those cases wouldn't convert over. Many of those cases would be, adult cases that probably wouldn't go to a specialist. And I think you'll see more integration of telehealth services and opportunities to reduce that chair time.
2 final questions. Nick, so I'm a big person of fantasy, as you can tell, going back in time and forward in time. So now we're going to take this another level here. So I'm giving you the ability to go out and have a beer with anybody in the history of the world. Who are you hanging out with?
Okay. I would say, off the top of my head, Benjamin Franklin would be a pretty awesome person. I'm a huge history buff, and I love that era. And the name for Candid, in fact, comes from when I was a very young child. Candid camera came to my house.
Really? Alan Fun?
And tried to convince my babysitter that it was Benjamin Franklin's original house. And so I think that would bring it all together.
And did they get her?
To the dinner, yes.
No, did they get her? No, did they get her to believe?
Oh, they didn't get her. No. She knew the house was built in the 1920s. Yeah.
That's so cool. I never knew that.
Yeah.
Great. And you, Jen, who would you have the ability, anybody in the history of the world, who you having a drink with?
So we were actually just talking about this past weekend. I want to sit down. It's funny you said that. I want to meet Oprah. I always have. I think she's the most fascinating person ever. I think she has done so much. I would love to sit down. I think you have to put it out in the universe to make it happen. But I would love to sit down and talk to her. I just think she's a wealth of knowledge and just the kindest human on the planet. And I would love to sit and have dinner or drink, anything.
Okay, interesting. And one final question, the most important one. An asteroid's hitting Earth in 3 hours. Yep. Nick, what's your last meal?
I would say a good Philadelphia soft pretzel with a lot of mustard.
Ooh. Yum.
That's it. Just a pretzel. That's all you're doing. That's the final meal, huh?
Yeah. Just a pretzel with some good,
hot mustard. Interesting. All right. Good. Jen? Last meal.
Sushi. Yeah. All day.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys, for joining. I really appreciate it. So if practice is interested in learning more about Candid, wants to do a demo or whatever, what's the best way for them to get information and to set this up?
Visit candidpro.com. You can fill out an information submission form there. We will reach out to you hopefully almost instantly. And if you can mention how you found out about us, we would love to know.
Oh, great. Thanks so much. So, Jen, Nick, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. This was very entertaining, educational. I love it. And I think what you guys are doing is great. So, my hat's off to you. I can't wait to see what's coming down the road. And, I'm very impressed by the work you're doing. So thank you so much from me as working in the industry. Love the change and what you're doing here. And I really wish you all the best moving forward. So thank you so much for joining us. Everybody out in podcast land, thank you so much for listening. Thanks so much. We'd love to hear your comments. If you have any questions, obviously reach out. We'd love to hear what you think of this, and obviously keep watching us and listening for more great podcasts. So everybody out there in podcast land, thank you so much. Jen, Nick, thank you so much for watching, really being with us. Appreciate it. And everybody out there, be safe and keep smiling. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
orthomarketing.com. 360-degree digital marketing solutions for your practice.